They shunned rejected Omega as a curse, until she saved the Alpha King's heir and the moon chose. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Chloe was not like the other Omegas in the pack. While others flourished with strength and agility, Chloe had never shifted into her wolf form, something that left her a constant target for ridicule and rejection. The pack would whisper behind her back, calling her broken, useless, and worse, but nothing hurt more than the cold, indifferent rejection from the one person she had trusted most, her mate. Chloe had always hoped that the moon would choose her as someone's fated mate, but those hopes were dashed when the pack's alpha, Kale, publicly rejected her at the mating ceremony. "You are a curse," he had said, his words cutting deeper than any physical wound. Left with nothing but the bitter sting of rejection, Chloe retreated into the forests, finding solace only in the quiet whispers of the wind and the rustling of the leaves. She wandered deeper into the wilderness, away from the prying eyes of the pack, until one fateful evening, she stumbled upon a wounded figure lying by the edge of the river. It was a young boy, barely more than a teenager, with pale skin and dark, disheveled hair. His clothes were torn, and blood oozed from a deep gash in his side. Chloe's heart skipped a beat as she knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she examined the severity of his injuries. Without thinking, she reached into her pouch, pulling out herbs and salves she had gathered during her time in the woods. She worked quickly, her hands moving with practiced ease as she cleaned and dressed his wounds. As she worked, the boy stirred, his eyes flickering open, glowing a deep, eerie silver. "Who are you?" Chloe asked softly, startled by his gaze. The boy didn't answer, but there was something about the way he looked at her, a recognition she couldn't quite place. She finished bandaging his wounds, but as she looked down at him, she felt an overwhelming sense of déjà vu. This boy was not just anyone. He was important. He had to be. Little did Chloe know, this was not just any stranger she had helped. The boy she had saved was Darius, the heir to the Alpha King. But at the time, he was just a wounded soul in need of care, and Chloe had no idea that saving him would change her life forever. As the night grew darker, Chloe stayed by his side, keeping watch over him. When the first rays of dawn broke through the trees, she heard the crunch of footsteps. Startled, she stood, looking around. From the shadows emerged a towering figure, tall and imposing, his eyes glowing a fierce gold. "You saved him," the figure said, his voice rough but filled with an unmistakable authority. Chloe's breath caught in her throat as she realized who stood before her. It was the Alpha King himself, King Aldric. He had been watching from afar, seeing everything Chloe had done, and in that moment, he knew that she was the one the moon had chosen. Chloe had no idea what this encounter would mean for her future, but one thing was certain: her life would never be the same again. What started as an act of kindness had already set the wheels of fate in motion, and now, she had a future to fight for. I apologize for the misunderstanding earlier. Let's continue where we left off, picking up the story right after Chloe's encounter with King Aldric and the Alpha heir, Darius. Chloe's world had just shifted dramatically, but the path ahead was still uncertain. Chloe stood frozen as the Alpha King stepped forward, his presence commanding the very air around them. His eyes locked onto hers, filled with an intensity that made her heart race. For a moment, she didn't know whether to run or stay, but something within her told her that she needed to stay. "You saved him," King Aldric said again, his voice deep and powerful, carrying an air of authority that seemed to resonate with the trees around them. "You saved my son, Chloe." Chloe blinked, trying to process the words. The realization hit her like a storm. The boy she had tended to in the woods wasn't just anyone. He was Darius, the heir to the throne of the Alpha King. She had saved him, unknowingly. Her heart began to pound in her chest as she realized that she was standing in the presence of the most powerful man in the entire territory. King Aldric's gaze softened as he stepped closer. He seemed to sense her confusion, and he lowered his voice. I have been watching you, Chloe. I know what they say about you. The broken Omega who cannot shift. But that doesn't matter. What matters is what you've just done. Chloe swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking deep into her. The pack had always seen her as nothing more than a curse, someone unworthy of attention or respect. But now, she was standing before the Alpha King, and he was speaking to her as if she were someone important. I don't know why I did it, Chloe whispered, her voice trembling. I just saw someone in need, and I couldn't turn away. King Aldric studied her for a long moment, his piercing eyes never leaving hers. He seemed to be searching for something deeper than just the act of kindness. The moon has chosen you, he said quietly, almost as if to himself. That is why you saved him. You are more than what they say you are, Chloe. You are a fated mate, and the moon has brought us together. Chloe's breath caught in her throat. She had heard the legends of the fated mates, of the bond that was formed between an alpha and their true mate, a bond so strong that it could not be broken. But she never thought she would be part of that story. She never thought she would be chosen. I don't understand, Chloe said softly. Why me? Why now? King Aldric's face softened, and for the first time, she saw a glimpse of the man beneath the power. Because, Chloe, the world is changing, and we need someone who can heal what has been broken. Someone like you. Chloe's mind raced as she tried to process everything. The Alpha King was offering her something no one had ever offered her before. He was offering her a place beside him, a place of power, a place where she could finally belong. But how could she accept it? How? Could she accept a future when she had spent so long believing she had none? King Aldric must have seen the hesitation in her eyes, because he stepped closer and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You don't have to decide right now, he said softly. But know this, Chloe. You are no longer the broken Omega they once called you. You are someone important, someone destined for more. You have a purpose in this world, and it begins with you standing by my side. As the words left his lips, Chloe felt a strange warmth fill her chest. For the first time in her life, she felt seen. She felt like she mattered. But she couldn't shake the fear that lingered at the back of her mind. Could she really live up to the expectations that came with being the Alpha King's mate? Could she really be the person the world needed her to be? What happens now? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. King Aldric gave her a small, reassuring smile. Now, Chloe, we return to the pack. You will no longer be alone. We will face whatever comes together. With that, the Alpha King turned and began to lead the way back to the pack. Chloe followed, her heart heavy with uncertainty, but also filled with a new sense of hope. For the first time in her life, she felt like she had a future that was hers to shape. As she walked beside the Alpha King, she couldn't help but wonder what the future held for her, for Darius, and for the pack. But one thing was clear. Her journey had only just begun, and the world she had once thought was against her was now opening up in ways she had never imagined. The moon had chosen her, and Chloe was ready to embrace her destiny. I apologize for the previous misunderstanding. Let's continue the story from where we left off. Chloe's journey has just begun, and she's standing at the edge of something far bigger than she could have ever imagined. As Chloe walked beside King Aldric back to the pack, her thoughts raced. The moment she had always feared, the moment where she would be forced to face her past, the shame, the rejection, was now upon her. The once quiet, lonely forest now seemed like a distant memory, replaced by the bustling energy of the pack's territory. As they approached the grand gates of the pack's stronghold, Chloe felt her heart thud in her chest, each step carrying her closer to a life she had never dared to dream of. King Aldric walked beside her, his presence as powerful as ever. The guards at the gate immediately recognized him and stepped aside, bowing low. The air felt charged with anticipation, but Chloe's nerves only grew. What would they think of her? The Omega who had been shunned, the one who could not shift, the one who was always an outcast? As they entered the courtyard, Chloe noticed the pack members whispering, their eyes darting toward her and the Alpha King. She could feel their gazes on her, heavy with judgment and curiosity. King Aldric noticed her discomfort and placed a reassuring hand on her back. Do not worry, he said softly, his voice gentle yet firm. You are with me now. The words were simple, but they carried a weight that Chloe had never felt before. It was not just a promise of protection, but a promise that she mattered, that she had a place in this world. Chloe had never known such security, not even in the safety of her own family. They walked through the grand hall of the palace, the grandeur of it overwhelming. The stone walls were adorned with tapestries depicting great battles, the pride of the Alpha King's reign. Chloe had seen them before, but now they seemed to be mocking her, reminding her of her insignificance. As they reached the throne room, Chloe hesitated. She had never been inside this room, had never thought she would be allowed to set foot here. But now, as she stood on the threshold, she felt the eyes of everyone in the room on her. King Aldric motioned for her to step forward, and as she did, the room fell silent. "This," King Aldric announced, his voice carrying across the room, "is Chloe, my mate, the one who saved my son. She is no longer to be dismissed or looked down upon. She is my equal." The words sent a wave of shock through the room. Chloe's breath caught in her throat as she looked around, seeing the faces of the pack members. Some were in disbelief, others in awe, and a few were clearly resentful. But in that moment, Chloe knew that everything had changed. She was no longer the Omega who was cast aside. She was now the Alpha King's mate, and that came with power, with respect, and with the possibility of a future she had never dared to dream of. After the proclamation, the court members slowly began to disperse, leaving Chloe and King Aldric standing alone in the center of the throne room. Chloe's heart was still racing, her mind reeling from the words she had just heard. "I never imagined this day would come," Chloe said softly, her voice barely a whisper. King Aldric turned to her, his expression softening. "Neither did I," he replied. "But the moon works in mysterious ways. It is our destiny." Chloe felt a strange warmth fill her chest at his words. She had never believed in fate, never believed that someone like her could be chosen for something greater. But now, standing here, with the Alpha King at her side, she was beginning to understand that fate had more in store for her than she could have ever known. As the days passed, Chloe began to settle into her new role as the Alpha King's mate. She was not without challenges, though. There were still whispers among the pack, still doubts about her worth. Some of the older members of the pack were particularly resistant to the idea of Chloe taking such an important role beside the Alpha King. They could not understand why someone who could not shift, someone who had been cast aside, could now stand at the heart of the pack. But Chloe was determined to prove them wrong. She spent her days learning about the pack's customs, about the power dynamics that ran through their society. She worked with the healers, honing her own skills and learning how to use her unique abilities to help those around her. King Aldric was always by her side, supporting her in every step of the way. He was a patient teacher, guiding her through the complexities of pack politics and leadership. Despite the challenges, Chloe could feel herself growing stronger with each passing day. The bond between her and King Aldric deepened, and with it, her sense of purpose. She had a role to play in this world, and she was determined to fulfill it, no matter what the future held. I apologize for the confusion earlier. Let's continue with Chloe's journey as she settles into her new life alongside King Aldric. As Chloe adjusted to her new position by King Aldric's side, the weight of the pack's expectations began to sink in. It was not just about being the mate of the Alpha King. It was about leading the pack, guiding them through times of strife, and proving to them that she was worthy of the title. Each day brought new challenges, and Chloe found herself struggling with the responsibilities placed upon her. Despite the respect Aldric had shown her, the pack members were not so easily swayed. The older wolves were particularly resistant to her presence, some even openly questioning her abilities, while others whispered behind her back. Chloe could feel their judgment, like a heavy weight pressing down on her shoulders, but she knew she could not let it break her. King Aldric noticed the strain on her and offered words of encouragement whenever he could. "The pack will come to respect you," he told her one evening as they stood overlooking the vast lands that stretched beyond the palace walls. "It will take time, but they will see the strength you possess. You saved Darius, Chloe. You saved my son, and that alone speaks volumes." His words were like a balm to her troubled heart, but Chloe still struggled to see herself as the powerful mate of an Alpha King. She was still the broken Omega in her own mind, the one who had been cast aside and ignored for so long. Yet, each time she worked with the healers or guided the young wolves in the training fields, she felt a spark of something stronger within her, something she had never felt before. Her own abilities, ones she had once thought were useless, were beginning to show their true potential. One morning, while walking through the palace gardens, Chloe encountered a wounded wolf, one of the younger members of the pack. He had been injured in a sparring match, and the sight of his injuries made Chloe's heart ache. Without hesitation, she rushed to his side, her hands trembling as she worked to heal his wounds. As her hands glowed with the soft, golden light of her healing power, the young wolf's pain seemed to melt away. He looked up at her, his eyes wide with wonder. You healed me, he said, his voice filled with awe. Chloe smiled softly, the weight of the moment settling in. It was the first time she had used her healing abilities in front of anyone, and it felt right, like it was part of her purpose. Later that day, Chloe found herself once again in the presence of King Aldric. He had been watching her from a distance, and when she approached, he gave her a knowing smile. "You're beginning to understand your power," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You are no longer the broken Omega, who could not shift. You are Chloe, my mate, and you are destined for greatness." Chloe felt a surge of warmth at his words, but also a sense of fear. Could she really live up to this destiny? Could she truly lead the pack? As if reading her mind, Aldric placed a hand on her shoulder. "You are not alone in this," he reassured her. "I will be by your side every step of the way. We are in this together." Those words, so simple yet so powerful, gave Chloe the strength she needed to face the challenges ahead. The next few days were filled with training, strategy meetings, and discussions with the elders of the pack. Chloe learned the intricacies of leadership, the delicate balance of power, and the responsibility that came with her new position. It was overwhelming at times, but with Aldric's guidance, she began to see how she could use her skills to strengthen the pack. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Chloe and Aldric stood together on the palace balcony. The cool breeze ruffled her hair, and for the first time since her arrival, she felt a sense of peace. "You are doing well," Aldric said, his voice soft but filled with conviction. "The pack is beginning to see the leader within you. It will take time, but you will earn their respect." Chloe smiled, a true smile this time, not one filled with doubt. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing in me." Aldric's gaze softened, and he took her hand in his. "I believe in you because I know you have the strength to lead. You are more than just my mate, Chloe. You are the future of this pack." Chloe's heart swelled with emotion, but she knew that this was just the beginning of her journey. There would be more challenges ahead, more trials to face, but with Aldric by her side, she felt ready to embrace whatever came next. The moon had chosen her, and she was no longer the broken Omega. She was Chloe, the mate of the Alpha King, and she was ready to claim her place in the world. "I apologize for the previous confusion. Let's continue Chloe's journey." As the days passed, Chloe found herself becoming more comfortable in her role as the mate of King Aldric, though the challenges were far from over. She had gained some acceptance within the pack, but there were still those who viewed her as the outsider, the Omega who had once been rejected. The whispers of the elders, especially those who had been loyal to previous rulers, lingered in the halls of the palace. They did not understand how someone like Chloe, someone who could not shift, could possibly be worthy of standing beside the Alpha King. It weighed heavily on Chloe's heart, but with each passing day, she grew stronger. She knew that she couldn't let their doubts define her. She had to prove herself, not just to them, but to herself. One afternoon, as Chloe walked through the garden, a soft breeze blowing through her hair, she encountered Darius. He was sitting by the fountain, watching the water flow with a contemplative expression on his face. The young heir had grown since Chloe had first met him, though his wounds, both physical and emotional, still lingered. "Chloe," Darius said as she approached, a soft smile gracing his face. "I've been meaning to speak with you." Chloe sat beside him, offering him a gentle smile in return. "What's on your mind, Darius?" she asked, her voice warm and understanding. Darius looked at her with an intensity that made Chloe pause. "I know things have been difficult for you," he began. "I've seen how the pack treats you, how they question your worth." Chloe tensed, but Darius placed a reassuring hand on hers. "But I want you to know that you're not alone. My father believes in you, and I do too." Chloe felt a lump form in her throat. She had never heard such words of encouragement from anyone in the pack. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It means more than you know." Darius smiled softly, his eyes filled with a sense of understanding that only someone who had faced their own struggles could possess. "You're stronger than you realize, Chloe. And you have something that no one else in this pack has, your ability to heal. Your kindness, your empathy, those are your true strengths. Chloe took a deep breath, his words sinking in. She had always seen her healing powers as a curse, something that made her different, something that made her weak in the eyes of others. But now, Darius was showing her that her gifts were something to be proud of. I never thought of it that way, she said softly. I've always felt like an outsider, like I didn't belong. Darius nodded, his expression softening. I know the feeling. But you belong here, Chloe. You belong with my father, and you belong with me. Chloe's heart skipped a beat at his words. She had never imagined that the young heir, the one who was meant to lead after his father, would offer her such reassurance. Thank you, she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. As Chloe and Darius sat in the garden, the bond between them deepened. It wasn't the bond of a fated mate, but it was something just as strong, an understanding, a shared strength that would help them face whatever challenges the future might bring. That night, Chloe stood on the balcony of the palace, the moon shining brightly overhead. King Aldric joined her, standing beside her in silence, as they both took in the view of the pack's territory. How are you feeling? Aldric asked, his voice gentle. Chloe turned to him, her heart swelling with gratitude. I'm getting there, she said softly. I still have a lot to prove, but I'm ready to do it. I know I'm not perfect, and I know there will be challenges, but I'm ready to face them. With you by my side, I know I can do this. Aldric smiled, his pride in her evident. I have no doubt, Chloe. You were chosen for this. You were chosen for me, and for this pack. Your strength, your heart. Those are the qualities that will make you a great leader. And I'll be right here, guiding you every step of the way. Chloe felt a surge of hope and determination rise within her. She was no longer the broken Omega who had been cast aside. She was Chloe, the mate of the Alpha King, and the future of the pack rested in her hands. The moon had chosen her for a reason, and now she was ready to embrace her destiny, to lead the pack alongside Aldric and prove to the world that she was worthy of the role she had been given. The journey ahead would not be easy, but Chloe knew that she was no longer walking it alone. I apologize for the misunderstanding earlier. Let's continue Chloe's journey. As Chloe embraced her new role by King Aldric's side, she knew that the challenges she faced would be many, but she was determined to prove her worth, not just to the pack, but to herself. Every day, she worked harder, pushing through the doubts that still lingered in the back of her mind. The whispers among the pack were quieter now, but they had not fully stopped. Some respected her, others still viewed her as an outsider, and a few refused to acknowledge her as the Alpha King's mate. But Chloe had grown accustomed to the quiet murmurings, learning to ignore them, focusing instead on the work ahead. One afternoon, as Chloe was practicing with the young wolves in the training yard, she felt a shift in the air. The winds had changed, and there was a sense of unease that rippled through the pack. She looked up to see Aldric walking toward her, his face grim. Chloe, he said, his voice heavy with concern. There's been a disturbance at the border. A rogue pack has been spotted, and they are moving closer to our territory. Chloe felt a tightening in her chest. She had heard of rogue packs before, groups of wolves who did not belong to any particular alpha or pack, often dangerous and unpredictable. They were known to cause chaos and instability wherever they went. What should we do? Chloe asked, her voice steady, though she could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her. Aldric looked at her, his eyes filled with determination. We need to prepare for a potential conflict. I want you to stay here with the pack, help keep the young wolves safe, and be ready in case we need you. Chloe nodded, though a part of her wanted to fight alongside Aldric. She was no longer the weak Omega who had once been cast aside. She was Chloe, the mate of the Alpha King, and she had a responsibility to the pack. That night, as Chloe sat in her chambers, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. She had spent so long trying to prove herself, but the rogue pack's arrival made her realize that the greatest test was yet to come. Her mind raced with thoughts of what might happen. Would the pack accept her as their leader? Would they see her as worthy of standing by King Aldric's side? Would she be able to protect those she loved? The moonlight filtered through the window, casting a soft glow over her as she sat in silence. She closed her eyes and let out a long, steady breath. She had faced so much already, and now, she was about to face the greatest challenge of her life. But she was ready. The next morning, The pack gathered at the edge of the territory, where Aldric and Chloe stood with their warriors, waiting for the rogue pack's arrival. Chloe could feel the tension in the air, the anticipation of what was to come. The rogue wolves were known to be fierce, and the pack had to be prepared. King Aldric turned to Chloe, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. "Stay close to me," he said quietly, "and do not let fear take hold of you. You are stronger than you realize." Chloe nodded, her grip tightening on the hilt of her sword. She had never fought in battle before, but she knew that today was different. Today, she would prove herself. As the rogue pack approached, Chloe could hear their growls echoing through the trees, a sound that sent a shiver down her spine. The air was thick with the scent of wolves, wild and untamed. The rogue wolves emerged from the forest, their eyes glowing with menace. They were led by a large, scarred alpha, his eyes filled with contempt as he sized up Aldric and Chloe. "This is our territory now," the rogue alpha growled, his voice low and dangerous. "We'll take it by force if we must." Aldric stepped forward, his presence commanding. "This territory belongs to the Alpha King, and you will leave now, or face the consequences." The rogue alpha's lips curled into a sneer. "We don't fear you," he spat. "We've taken down alphas stronger than you." With a sudden roar, the rogue wolves lunged at the pack, and the battle erupted. Chloe felt a surge of adrenaline as she stepped into the fray, her sword flashing through the air as she defended the younger wolves who had been training with her. For the first time, she felt the weight of leadership, not just in words, but in action. She was fighting for her pack, for the people she had come to love. The battle raged on, and Chloe could feel the power of the moon coursing through her, giving her strength she never knew she had. She was no longer the Omega who had been cast aside. She was a force to be reckoned with. As the rogue wolves were pushed back, Chloe and Aldric fought side by side, their strength unmatched. The rogue alpha fell to the ground, defeated, and the remaining wolves quickly retreated into the woods, their defeat evident. When the battle was over, Chloe stood among the pack, her breath heavy but steady. She had done it. She had proven herself. As Aldric approached her, his face softening, he placed a hand on her shoulder. "You were incredible," he said, his voice filled with pride. Chloe smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. "We did it together," she replied, her voice steady and strong. For the first time, she truly felt like she belonged, not just as Aldric's mate, but as a leader in her own right. The moon had chosen her, and now, she was ready to embrace the power and responsibility that came with it. "I apologize for the previous confusion. Let's continue Chloe's journey." After the battle with the rogue pack, Chloe's position in the pack had shifted once again. She was no longer the broken Omega, the one who had been cast aside. She had proven herself, not just to King Aldric, but to the entire pack. The warriors now looked at her with a new sense of respect, and even the elders who had once doubted her abilities were beginning to see her in a different light. Still, Chloe knew that her journey was far from over. There were still challenges ahead, and she could not afford to become complacent. The fight with the rogue pack had been a significant victory, but it was only a small piece of the puzzle that lay before her. One evening, as she and Aldric sat together in the garden, Chloe reflected on the changes she had undergone since the day she first arrived at the palace. She had come so far, but there was still a lingering fear within her, a fear that she was not yet ready to fully accept her new role. "Aldric," she began, her voice soft but filled with uncertainty. "Do you truly believe I am ready for this? For everything that lies ahead?" Aldric turned to her, his eyes filled with unwavering confidence. "I have always believed in you, Chloe. You have proven yourself time and time again. You are ready, even if you do not yet see it yourself. The moon chose you for a reason. You have the strength, the heart, and the wisdom to lead this pack." Chloe looked down at her hands, the weight of his words settling on her. She had always doubted herself, always felt like she was too weak, too broken to lead. But Aldric's belief in her, and the faith the pack was starting to place in her, made her question everything she had once believed about herself. "I want to believe that," Chloe said quietly, "but I am still afraid. What if I fail? What if I am not enough?" Aldric reached out and gently took her hand in his. "You are not alone in this, Chloe. I will be by your side, always. You do not have to carry the weight of this pack on your shoulders alone. We are in this together, as equals." Chloe looked up at him, her heart swelling with emotion. For the first time in her life, she felt a sense of belonging, a sense that she was not just a burden to others, but a valuable part of something greater. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "For believing in me, for standing by my side." Aldric smiled, his eyes softening. "It is my honor, Chloe. You are the future of this pack, and I will do everything in my power to help you realize your full potential." The days that followed were filled with preparations for the future. Chloe worked alongside Aldric to strengthen the pack, making sure that every member, from the youngest pups to the seasoned warriors, was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Chloe's leadership began to shine through, not just in her strength, but in her compassion. She worked closely with the healers, learning to master her healing abilities and using them to help those in need. She spent hours in the training yard, teaching the younger wolves the skills they would need to protect themselves and the pack. But even as she worked tirelessly to prove herself, there was still one looming threat that could undo everything she had worked for. The Council of Elders, while slowly warming up to her, were still hesitant to fully accept her as the Alpha King's mate. They were creatures of tradition, and they had always believed that the mate of the Alpha King must be of a certain bloodline, of a certain status. Chloe, with her past, her inability to shift, and her humble beginnings, did not fit their expectations. One afternoon, as Chloe sat in the council chamber, waiting for the elders to arrive, she could feel the tension in the air. The room was silent, the weight of the council's judgment heavy on her shoulders. The elders entered one by one, their eyes cold and impassive. They took their seats, and for a moment, no one spoke. Finally, one of the eldest wolves, a sharp-eyed female named Alicia, broke the silence. "Chloe," she said, her voice laced with skepticism, "we have heard much about your abilities, your healing, your strength in battle. But there are still questions that remain unanswered." Chloe stood tall, her heart pounding in her chest. "What questions?" she asked, her voice steady despite the nerves that threatened to rise. Alicia's eyes narrowed. "You are not from a powerful bloodline. You cannot shift, and you have no real standing in this pack. Why should we accept you as the mate of the Alpha King?" The words hit Chloe like a blow to the chest. She had expected the doubts, but hearing them out loud still stung. Aldric, who had been standing quietly by her side, stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "Alicia," he said, his voice firm, "Chloe is not defined by her bloodline or her ability to shift. She is defined by her actions, by her heart, and by the strength she has shown since the moment I met her. She has earned her place by my side, and she will earn your respect, whether you are ready to give it or not." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Chloe could feel the weight of the moment, the eyes of the elders on her, waiting for her to respond. She took a deep breath, summoning all the strength she had inside her. "I may not have a powerful bloodline," she said, her voice strong and unwavering. "I may not be able to shift, but I have something more powerful than that, my heart. I will fight for this pack, for this family, and I will prove to all of you that I am worthy of standing beside King Aldric. You may doubt me now, but one day you will see." Alicia said nothing, but Chloe could feel the shift in the air. She had said what needed to be said, and while the elders may not have accepted her fully yet, Chloe knew that her time would come. She was no longer the broken Omega. She was Chloe, the Alpha King's mate, and she would fight for her place in this world. "I apologize for the previous confusion. Let's continue Chloe's journey." After her bold stand in the council chamber, Chloe could feel the tension in the air. The elders remained silent, but there was a shift. Some of them looked at her with cautious respect, while others remained skeptical. Chloe knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she was no longer the broken Omega who had been cast aside. She had proven herself in battle, in her healing, and in her unwavering determination. Now, she had to prove herself in the eyes of the pack and the council. The days that followed were filled with both progress and setbacks. Chloe continued to train, to heal, and to lead the younger wolves, while Aldric stood by her side, offering his guidance and support. He was proud of her, but Chloe could see the burden of leadership in his eyes. The weight of being the Alpha King was not an easy one to bear, and she knew he carried the responsibility of the entire pack on his shoulders. One evening, after another long day of training and strategy meetings, Chloe found herself alone in the garden, her thoughts heavy. The moon was full, casting its light across the palace grounds, and Chloe couldn't help but feel a sense of peace wash over her as she looked up at it. The moon had always been a symbol of guidance, of destiny, and tonight, it seemed to shine brighter than ever. She was no longer the outsider. She had a place in this world, a purpose, and the pack was starting to see it. As she stood there, lost in thought, she felt a presence beside her. Aldric had joined her, his footsteps soft against the grass. "You're thinking too much," he said, his voice a quiet murmur in the night. Chloe smiled faintly, glancing at him. "I guess I'm just wondering if I'm truly ready for all of this. The pack, the responsibility, everything." Aldric reached out, taking her hand in his. "Chloe," he said, his voice filled with warmth, "you are ready. You have always been ready. You have a strength within you that even you don't fully understand. The pack is beginning to see that. They will follow you, just as I do." Chloe felt a lump form in her throat at his words. His belief in her meant everything, but there was still a part of her that struggled to accept it. She had spent so many years believing she was not enough, not strong enough, not worthy enough. But with Aldric by her side, and with the support of the pack, she was starting to see that maybe she was wrong. "I'm scared," Chloe admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "What if I fail? What if I'm not the leader they need me to be?" Aldric squeezed her hand gently, his touch reassuring. "You won't fail, Chloe. You have already proven yourself in ways that no one else could. You have the heart of a leader, and that is what matters most." Chloe looked up at him, her heart swelling with emotion. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Aldric smiled, his eyes filled with affection. "You don't need to thank me. We are in this together, always." As the days passed, Chloe's confidence grew. She continued to lead the pack, earning their trust and respect with each decision she made. She worked closely with the elders, gaining their understanding, even if not their full acceptance just yet. Chloe knew that would come in time. The bond between her and Aldric deepened, and with it, her sense of belonging. She was no longer just the Alpha King's mate. She was Chloe, a leader in her own right, and the pack was her family. Then, one day, news arrived that would change everything. A distant pack, one that had long been a rival to Aldric's, had declared war. The challenge was clear. Aldric was to face their alpha in single combat, and if he lost, the pack would be theirs. Chloe felt a chill run down her spine as she heard the news. This was the moment she had feared, the moment when everything they had worked for could be torn apart in an instant. Aldric, ever calm, turned to Chloe. "I must face him, Chloe. It is the way of our people. But I want you by my side as always." Chloe nodded, her heart racing. She had never imagined this kind of challenge, but she was determined not to let Aldric face it alone. As the day of the battle approached, the tension in the pack grew. Chloe spent her days preparing the warriors, making sure they were ready for the aftermath, no matter the outcome. She knew that this was Aldric's fight, but it was also a fight for the future of their pack. On the morning of the battle, Chloe stood with Aldric in the training grounds, watching as the warriors prepared for the confrontation. She could see the weight of the moment in his eyes, but there was also a quiet determination. "No matter what happens today," Chloe said, her voice steady, "we will face it together. I will not let you fight alone." Aldric turned to her, his eyes filled with pride and love. "You are my strength, Chloe. Together, we can face anything." The battle that followed was fierce and brutal. Chloe watched from the sidelines, her heart in her throat as Aldric and the rival Alpha clashed. The sound of their fight echoed across the field, and Chloe knew that this moment would define everything. As the dust settled and the rival Alpha lay defeated, Aldric stood victorious, but it was clear that the fight had taken its toll. Chloe rushed to his side, her heart aching as she saw the wounds he had sustained. "You did it," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. Aldric smiled faintly, his strength beginning to fade. "We did it, Chloe," he replied, his voice barely audible. Together. The victory was theirs, but it was also Chloe's. She had proven, once and for all, that she was not just the Alpha King's mate. She was a leader in her own right, someone who would fight for her pack, no matter the cost. With Aldric by her side, Chloe knew that they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, as equals, as partners, and as family. "I apologize for the previous confusion. Let's continue Chloe's journey." The battle with the rival pack had left its mark, but it had also solidified Chloe's place in the pack's heart. The victory was a testament to everything she had become, but now, with the dust settled, a new chapter awaited. As Chloe stood beside Aldric in the aftermath of the battle, she knew that this victory was not just his, it was theirs. Together, they had proven that their bond was stronger than any challenge that came their way. The pack had seen their unity, their strength, and their unwavering commitment to each other, and Chloe could feel the change in the way they looked at her. The whispers had died down, and the respect that had once eluded her was now hers to claim. But despite this, Chloe knew that the real work had only just begun. There would be more challenges ahead, more battles to fight, not just on the field, but within the pack itself. As the days passed, Chloe focused on strengthening the pack, ensuring that each member was prepared for whatever the future held. She worked tirelessly alongside Aldric, leading the pack with a newfound confidence. But there was one thing that Chloe had not fully reckoned with: the weight of leadership. While she had always been strong, there were moments when the responsibility felt overwhelming. One evening, after a long day of meetings and preparations, Chloe found herself in the palace garden once more, the moonlight casting its familiar glow over the grounds. She stood there, alone with her thoughts, trying to reconcile the woman she had become with the fears that still lingered in her heart. "Chloe," a voice broke through her reverie, and she turned to see Aldric walking toward her, his face filled with concern. He had been by her side through it all, but Chloe could see the strain of leadership in his eyes as well. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice soft. Chloe smiled faintly, though there was a hint of sadness in her gaze. I don't know if I'm truly ready for all of this. I thought I was, but sometimes it feels like too much." Aldric stepped closer, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. "Chloe, you are ready. You have always been ready. You have shown strength in ways that most could never understand. But that doesn't mean you have to carry this burden alone. We are in this together, as partners, as equals." Chloe looked up at him, her heart swelling with emotion. "But what if I'm not enough?" she whispered, the vulnerability in her voice a stark contrast to the strong leader she had become. Aldric smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "You are more than enough, Chloe. You are everything I need, everything the pack needs. And you will continue to grow, to become the leader you are destined to be." His words were like a balm to her soul, easing the doubts that had plagued her heart. Chloe nodded, feeling the weight of his love and belief in her. "Thank you," she whispered, "for always believing in me." Aldric's gaze softened, and he pulled her into a tender embrace. "I will always believe in you," he murmured. "Together, we will face whatever comes next." In the days that followed, Chloe's confidence continued to grow. The pack rallied behind her, supporting her every step of the way. Aldric and Chloe worked side by side, their bond strengthening with each passing day. And though there would always be challenges, Chloe knew that she was no longer the broken Omega who had been cast aside. She was Chloe, the Alpha King's mate, and she had proven herself to be a leader in her own right. The moon had chosen her, and she had embraced her destiny with grace and strength. The future was uncertain, but with Aldric by her side and the support of the pack, Chloe knew that together, they would face whatever came their way, as a family, as a united force, and as the true rulers of the Northern Territories. They had conquered their past, and now, they were ready to build a future of their own, one filled with hope, unity, and the love that had brought them together. Chloe's journey had been long and filled with hardship, but in the end, it was her strength, her heart, and her unwavering determination that had led her to the place she was always meant to be. And as she stood by Aldric's side, the Alpha King, Chloe knew that the story of their love and their reign was only just beginning. "I apologize for the confusion earlier. Here's the SEO description you requested." In a world filled with mystery, power, and destiny, the story of Chloe, a rejected Omega, unfolds as she navigates the world of werewolves, proving her worth against all odds. From being cast aside by her pack to standing by the side of the Alpha King, Chloe's journey is one of strength, healing, and acceptance. Her story is not just about love, but about overcoming deep-rooted fears and embracing her true power as a werewolf, the mate of the Alpha King. As she leads the pack, Chloe faces the challenges of being both a healer and a leader, while the weight of the werewolf world's expectations bears down on her. With Aldric by her side, Chloe learns to trust in her abilities, proving that even a rejected Omega can rise to greatness. In this epic tale, Chloe's transformation from a broken wolf to a powerful leader in the werewolf pack shows that true strength lies in heart and perseverance. This is a story of love, destiny, and courage in the world of werewolves, where Chloe's destiny intertwines with the fate of the entire pack. Through battles, loss, and triumph, Chloe's journey reveals that being a true leader means embracing the power within, no matter where you come from or what others believe. This is the epic tale of a werewolf's rise to greatness, proving that no matter how broken you may feel, destiny has a way of leading you to the place where you truly belong.